48-year-old Missouri man Steve Parson was found guilty of sodomizing a 14-year-old girl horrifically. This is a convicted rapist. And just after the verdict was reached and read in court, he killed himself in court by allegedly consuming a cyanide pill. And this is literally just after the verdict was reached. Authorities say that he collapsed and started convulsing on the floor right in front of friends, family, witnesses after allegedly swallowing the poison in a Maryville courtroom. Parsons was found guilty on 2 felony counts. He had been sentenced to a maximum of 7 years behind bars after his victim actually took the stand and testified against him. Before we get to the cyanide thing, 7 years for felony rape of a minor?
2 felony counts.
2 felony counts. Something about that sounds very wrong. We don't know all the details of the case, but at face value, that's concerning.
It sounds like another epic fail by our legal system, yes.
Immediately after his death, the county sheriff's office discovered that overnight he had purchased 100 grams of cyanide, or rather, he was overnighted a 100-gram purchase of cyanide from an online store earlier in the week. The suspicion is that when he got into the courtroom, he already had the cyanide in his mouth, and that's how he escaped having it detected by security. Of course, if you have a little bit of cyanide in an interior pocket, I don't know that it would be detected anyway by security.
Probably not. You usually just go through a metal detector.
This isn't that uncommon. About a year ago, there was a multimillionaire businessman who took his own life in the exact same way. It was caught on camera, in fact. What sentence would make you consider doing something like this, Lewis? If you knew, let's forget about innocence or guilt or whatever.
If I were my current age?
If you were your current age and you were sentenced to what term in prison, would you consider committing suicide in this way? Or would you not?
No, I would definitely consider it. Probably maybe over 25 years, maybe over, if it was 25 years or more, probably.
So at age 28, if you were sentenced to 25 years or more, you would think about just ending your life.
Yeah.
Natan, what do you think?
I mean, it's a pretty bizarre hypothetical.
And the reason I ask it is,
it's impossible to really think about it if you don't think of all of the other things, like what crime was committed, whether you feel guilty over the crime, whether you care about your family in terms of what is the consequences of you doing it are going to be. There's so many ifs, ands. I mean, I don't know if I could give a yearly number on it.
It is interesting that the sentence was only 7 years, and he decided to do this.
We know what can happen to people that rape children in prison.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
2 people who suggested this story, just as an aside, said this should be made available to all prisoners in case they say, I want to off myself. It would help with prison crowding. And this should just be made available. And I actually have a real problem with that. It really doesn't sound like justice to me, particularly when there are so many mentally ill individuals that are sentenced to regular prison when realistically they should be in a psychiatric institution. You're really leaving people that are not fit to make decisions for themselves able to make very, very poor decisions.
Even if you're in prison, if you really, really want to kill yourself, it's not going to be hard to do.
You're saying it doesn't depend on having cyanide.
Right.
Interesting. Send me your thoughts on that. There's a lot of questions around this, and it was interesting that people, completely unrelated people who suggested this story said, why not make cyanide pills available to anyone who's in prison at any time? And I think most of our audience is not going to agree with that idea. On today's bonus show, a 200-year-old fish is caught and killed. We'll talk about head transplants on the horizon and mandatory parental visiting in China. DavidPakman.com/membership and DavidPakman.com/wow, the special. Check it out.
The David Pakman Show at DavidPakman.com.